Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Be Well, Be Keto, and today's inspiring guest is Heather Cohen. Heather has healed her body from 2 different autoimmune diseases as well as cancer, and she offers a ton of nuggets and inspiration for you to know that you have hope as well. So let's go and say hello to Heather.
Welcome to the Be Well, Be Keto podcast, where we showcase ordinary people who have achieved extraordinary results. Your host is the high energy girl, health coach, and personal trainer, Tracy Gluhite.
Create Whole Body Wellness, a powerful new advancement in energy medicine. Increase your energy, empower your life. I am super excited to announce that I am now a bioenergetics practitioner. And many people are like, well, what is bioenergetics? So imagine that our body is controlled by our energy field, and these fields get distortions and blockages, which create physical and emotional symptoms. So how do we get energy blockages? From stress, toxins, EMFs, emotional traumas, physical scars, and physical traumas. All you need to do is decode the human body field to get to the root cause and restore your energy for life. For more information, head on over to the blog at highenergygirl.com/bioenergetics with an X. That's BIOENERGETIX, and heal your energy for life. Have you joined the Facebook group yet? I have a new Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and that is pretty much where I'm hanging out these days, and I would love to have you a part of the group. So head on over to High Energy Girls on Facebook. Hey, Heather, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited too, because I know you have quite the story to share, right?
I've been through some stuff, yeah.
Mildly putting it, huh? So why don't you let the listeners know a little bit about who Heather is?
Sure, that's a pretty big question. Basically, August of 2017, I was diagnosed with vulvar cancer. It was stage 1B infiltrating squamous cell carcinoma. Infiltrating means that it had penetrated more than just the first couple layers of skin. And it was moderately well differentiated, which means that it was kind of medium in terms of how aggressive it was. And it was of the vulva. And it's a rare cancer. Usually you don't see vulvar cancer at all, let alone in a woman my age. I was 37 when I was diagnosed. Usually vulvar cancer develops postmenopausal, and it can either develop in one of 2 ways. It can be caused by the HPV virus, or it can be keratinizing. Keratinizing means that it's kind of developed from a tear or a wound in the area that wouldn't heal. Mine was keratinizing because I also had an autoimmune condition called lichen sclerosus, which is a really terrible, nasty autoimmune condition where your immune system attacks the skin of your vulva, and it causes a lot of kind of science fiction type related symptoms, including lots of itching and terrible things that happen to your skin. It's awful. So yes, I had this really rare, interesting cancer that you don't usually see in young women. And I got diagnosed with both the vulvar cancer and a lichen sclerosus on the same day, same doctor's appointment, kind of a double whammy with a biopsy. But my story actually goes back further than that. Back in 2007, I was actually diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease after I nearly died from the flu on a trip to Boston visiting a friend. At that time, I started seeing a naturopath, and I found out that I had food sensitivities. Basically, I'm allergic to gluten and dairy, and my dairy allergy is pretty severe. I can't have any dairy at all. It's not airborne or anything. It's not that bad, but it's definitely a pretty bad allergy. And I didn't know this, but I had had that allergy since I was born. And so lichen sclerosus was actually the first autoimmune condition that I developed, because I've had symptoms since I was 12, but because it's a very rare condition, it's usually passed off as a yeast infection or something else, and so it was ignored. And if it goes untreated, that's how it develops into cancer. So 2 autoimmune conditions and cancer, and now I'm free of all those things because of keto and a lot of other things that I've been doing.
So when you say that you had a dairy allergy, was it an anaphylactic allergy or is it a food sensitivity?
It's an actual allergy. It's not quite anaphylactic. It's a delayed allergy. So I get symptoms like hay fever, itchy ears, itchy palate, watery eyes, lots of mucus. My joints swell pretty bad. Get a lot of soreness, stiffness. I also gain like 8 to 10 pounds of water overnight.
Oh, wow.
So it's an allergy. It's an actual antibody reaction. And it seems to happen with, doesn't matter if it's cow's milk or goat's milk or it's any kind of casein or whey at all.
Now, when they tested you, what kind of a test did they do? Because I've had multiple different kinds.
Sure. The naturopath that I see does a blood test. There's actually 2 different types of blood tests. I'm not sure what the names of them are. And I've done both, and it's come back as a pretty high on the chart on both of them. So I think the range is like 1 to 4, and I come back 3 or 4 every time. It's a pretty severe allergy.
Wow. Because I interviewed a doctor for my other show recently, and I can't remember which one she recommends. She's a naturopath doctor, and gosh darn it, I wish I could remember. But anyhow, okay, so that came back, and then so you got diagnosed with cancer. In what year was that?
It was August of 2017, so it wasn't too long ago.
Oh, wow, a year and a half. And then what happened?
So from there, the standard of care, obviously, for any kind of cancer is the big 3. If there's no clinical trials to try, they either burn it, poison it, or cut it out. So those were my choices. And basically, my oncologist said, usually the standard of care for this type of cancer is surgical removal. The problem with mine, though, is that the affected area was very close to my clitoris. And so he actually wanted to castrate me in the process. And at 37 years old, I was not willing to let that kind of mutilation happen to my body, especially because I had read that my particular cancer has a high incidence of recurrence. We're talking like 12 to 37%. So even if they take it out and they get it all, it's very possible that it would just grow back, especially because I had the underlying condition of lichen sclerosis. So the area was constantly inflamed and irritated. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to let you take important pieces of my body when I very well possibly might need to have multiple surgeries further down the road. And so I went ahead and thank goodness my oncologist said that he would abide by my wishes. So I let him go ahead and perform surgery, and he removed as much as he could without disturbing any of the important bits down there. And so he got most of the tumor burden removed from the area, but he did not get all of it. So I did not get clear margins in the surgery. So from there, he said, okay, we didn't get clear margins, so you got 2 options. 1, I can go in and do another surgery, and you have to let me take whatever I need to take in order to get it all out. Or you can go through radiation with a low-dose chemotherapy to accompany the radiation. The radiation he was talking about was pretty intense radiation therapy. It was like 35 treatments of a pretty high dose. And the consequences of such radiation to my body, like you're talking like the lower quarter of your torso, I could have lost my rectum, I could have lost my bladder, I could have had my intestines burned together. The side effects were just ridiculous. And he went down the list of side effects with me, and he's like, this could happen, and then there was a list of things that definitely would happen. And it was like fiery diarrhea and like problems with my bowels and incontinence and all of these terrible things because you got important organs in that area of your body.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that doesn't work. Not to mention sexual dysfunction for the rest of my life because that area would be burnt to a crisp. So any elasticity in the area would be completely gone. I would just be kind of defunct in that region forever. So I took it to my naturopath. My naturopath is fantastic. She's been working with me for several years because of the food allergies and the Hashimoto's and all of that. And I had adrenal fatigue along the way. I had estrogen dominance along the way. And she's helped me with all of those things. And she kind of sat me down and gave me a real strict talking to. And she said, do not let them take your clitoris. Do not let them do radiation. And she told me several stories of past patients on both sides, folks that had gone through conventional treatment and had to deal with things like lost rectums and colostomy bags and lost bladders and those types of things. And on the other side, folks that had actually treated naturally through like high dose vitamin C therapy and lots of supplementation and diet change. And she said, these guys, like squamous cell is a very weak cancer. You can knock it out with natural means. And that kind of changed my viewpoint of everything. And she referred me to a local clinic here in Phoenix. I'm very lucky to live in Arizona, which is kind of the mecca alongside Colorado, I believe, for alternative treatments for cancer. There's tons of clinics and therapists out here.
Oh, cool.
And so I started at the clinic, and I treated with high-dose intravenous vitamin C therapy, hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy, and then a very strict therapeutic ketogenic diet, and lots of supplementation, along with a ton of other lifestyle changes. And in 3 months, the rest of the cancer was gone. So I'm now cancer-free. And next month, February 23rd, is my 1-year cancer-free anniversary.
Oh my gosh. I'm so
And
happy
I've got to
for
keep
you.
it that way.
Well, now you know what to do. I mean, if you can kill it, I think that you
Right.
can probably keep it that way. So
Yeah.
let's kind of break that down. So what,
Okay.
for the listeners that, might have cancer, or we all know people with cancer, why don't you tell us like some juicy details about, what you did first and how often you did it, and what is a therapeutic ketogenic diet? Like, what did you follow exactly?
Sure. So in terms of like eating, I did 2 things. I followed a therapeutic ketogenic diet, and there's a lot of stuff going around the internet and news and magazines and media about keto right now. It's very popular and very trendy, I would say. And that's almost unfortunate, because I feel like a lot of the rhetoric around keto is either, one, everyone's afraid of it because it's alternative to what we've been taught forever, or it's like only being used for weight loss and nobody's paying attention to food quality or ingredients or any of those things. And it's really just, I want to drop some pounds quickly, and it ends up being a crash diet and a problem. Therapeutic keto is very, very different, and is actually in the roots of where ketogenic dieting kind of came from, in that the macronutrient percentages are different. So keto, particularly for cancer, is really, really, really high fat. So I stuck to 80% at least, usually 80 to 90% fat on a regular basis. So I had very few carbohydrates. It was probably, I didn't track super close every single day. It was probably 20 to 50 maybe total carbs a day. And if I ever got carbs, it was basically from eggs, vegetables, avocados, and then the really fatty nuts like walnuts, pecans, pili nuts, macadamias, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So lots and lots of fat. Basically, I added fat to everything. So if I had bacon and eggs, I added lots of bacon grease to those eggs. If I had, if I had roast beef, I would put mayo on it, and then I would wrap a piece of avocado in it. And so those types of things I would eat. I also lived off of ketogenic ice cream. So I figured out how to make keto ice cream dairy-free from cacao butter and coconut oil and MCT oil and coconut milk and egg yolks. And so I did a lot of that.
Oh, I would love that recipe.
I actually just put it on my website. So if you go to heathercohen.com, it's up there.
Okay, we'll have to share a link to that in the show notes page for sure.
Definitely. I'll make sure and get it to you. So, but I mean, I was treating with all of this in the summertime in Phoenix, and so ice cream is what I wanted, and I figured out how to make it. It's high fat anyway, and you swap out some of the ingredients, and there you go. You got keto ice cream, and it's fantastic.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yep. So that's the ketogenic like food portion of it, and the ratios in terms of macronutrients. And then on top of that, I did intermittent fasting. So I would only eat 1 or 2 meals a day, and I would usually go anywhere from 16, 18, 20 hours fasted. So I would probably break my fast anywhere between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., and then I would have dinner 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening. So I'm not very diligent about eating at the same time every day. It's kind of in those ranges is where I'd end up eating if I had both meals. If I only had one, then it would probably be a later lunch. If I only had dinner, it'd be an earlier dinner.
Yeah.
So I tended to do intermittent fasting.
So how much protein did you consume? Because what I find is it's easiest for me to eat more protein.
Sure. A lot of people say that, and it's actually surprisingly difficult not to get too much protein when you're trying to get a lot of fat. So every single meal, I really wanted a protein, a vegetable, and a fat. And so vegetables were my vehicle for all the fat. So if I was having Brussels sprouts, there'd be a 1/4 cup of bacon grease on there roasting those guys. In terms of protein, I didn't really pay attention to how much protein I was getting as long as my plate equaled out to be 80% fat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I ended up with too much protein, then I'd add more fat to make sure that my ratios balanced out.
Okay.
That's how I managed it.
Okay, interesting. And so you did the therapeutic ketogenic diet. So, most of the listeners are probably understand keto and you just explained therapeutic. So what about the other modalities? What else did you change in your life?
Sure. I changed all kinds of things. For me, stress was a really big contributing factor. Because if you just kind of think through the root causes of my disease, all of them, it was food allergies that led to leaky gut, that led to inflammation, that led to autoimmune disease, that led to hormone disruption, and then I had chronic stress on top of that, that led to cancer. So it's kind of this chain reaction that took several years. So one of the big things was quitting my job. I have been in marketing for many years, and I was working in the tech startup space at a company that was VC backed, that was growing really fast. And so they were trying to grow revenue like 40% year over year for 7 years kind of thing. And I was headed into the C-suite as chief revenue officer, responsible for that growth. And unfortunately, one of the workplaces I was at was very toxic. And so changing that was a really big relief. So I quit my high-powered job and I started my own marketing firm, and so I could own my own time. And then I've only really been working part-time ever since. So that was a huge thing. I started journaling on a regular basis. I started daily detox rituals, stuff like dry brushing to move the lymph system to remove toxins from the body. I did oil pulling, which pulls toxins out of your dental cavity. I did detox baths. I tried meditation and visualization. I didn't get very good at that. I didn't do it on a very consistent basis, but I tried. I got outside and I got a lot of sunshine and did earthing. So I actually would apply my skin to the earth, so bare feet in the grass or in the dirt. I would really focus on good sleep. So I'd go to bed early every night, and I still do. My husband and I both jump in bed about 8:30, and then we unwind and we get up. We get up still pretty early, like 4:30 or 5, but I always get like 8 hours of sleep at least. I quit drinking alcohol, so I haven't had alcohol in like a year and a half. I also quit smoking. I used to actually be a pretty major cigar connoisseur, so I don't smoke cigars anymore.
Oh, that's unique.
Right, people always laugh because I'm a woman. It's weird, but I was into it. I changed all of my beauty and personal care products, so I have non-toxic versions of all of that now. I don't really wear makeup or anything, so that wasn't a big deal. But lotions and face creams and bubble baths and all of those things I had to change over to non-toxic versions. I switched out all my cookware to stainless steel. I used to use the Teflon stuff. I did not change over to cast iron because cancer actually feeds off of ferritin, which is iron. And so you don't want any additional iron in your system leaching off of your cookware. So we did stainless steel. There are issues with stainless steel as well in terms of nickel and things, but it's one of the safer options. Switched all the Tupperware in our house to glass and stopped drinking out of plastic cups. I added exercise. So I go to Zumba every single weekday. I love Zumba. It's so fun. And then I weight train 2 or 3 times a week. More quality time with my husband, more sex, obviously, because now things work like they're supposed to.
You go, girl.
Yeah, and then more social time with my friends. I spend a lot of time outdoors on the weekends. My husband and I are off-road enthusiasts. We have a Jeep and we like to take it out, and so we spend a lot of time outdoors active. So yeah, I changed my entire life, like overhauled it.
Wow, that is amazing. And so you said something that I want to ask more about. So the detox baths, what does that look like?
Sure. So I usually put Aztec clay, like, I don't know, I just sprinkle it in. I don't measure. So just enough so that it doesn't get gummy and muddy in there. So sprinkle a little bit of that in there. And then I usually do Epsom salt. So it's like a couple cups of Epsom salt. And then whatever soap I want, because I need to have bubbles in my bath. Aww. So usually I do that. It's really about just kind of relaxing and making sure I get my magnesium because that's calming and helps with sleep. So I usually do that every Sunday night.
Every what?
Sunday night.
Oh, so you just do it once a week?
Well, if I can do it more often now, I do, but every Sunday for sure.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I love the baths. I was doing 2 a week, but then, I don't know, I got out of the habit. I need to get back in it. That was a good one. So I tried meditation too, and I always had a hard time with it. But you know what I found that works really, really well is Qigong.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, it's actually so my Qigong teacher, he's an actual Chinese medicine doctor, and he's been able to even help people with a lot of, I don't want to make medical claims on here, but he's been able to help people with a lot of disease. So
Yeah.
it's pretty like remarkable, but I'm pretty new at it. I've only been doing it for about 2 months. But it actually is a way for you, like meditation's there to calm the mind. Qigong is there to calm the mind, but it also brings energy into your body. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
The other thing that I did do was I started to see a Reiki practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with energy healing as well. And it's basically, I just lay down for, I think it would take 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And she would just kind of touch my body where my chakras were and rebalance my energy. And that seemed to help release any kind of tension or emotions or things that I was holding on to. And then at the same time, I was also going to counseling because cancer diagnosis comes with quite a bit of trauma. And so I needed to process through all of that, not to mention all of the PTSD from toxic workplaces.
Oh, so. Yeah. Gosh, I can only imagine. And you do Zumba. I love Zumba. I used to teach Zumba.
Nice.
Yeah, that's like the funnest thing. I mean, to me, I always tell people Zumba gives you permission to go out on the dance floor and bust a move like you wish you did when you were 20, right, but you held back.
Definitely. Absolutely. It's great.
So, what are you doing now to kind of maintain status quo? Are you still doing all of those therapies, or have you backed off on some?
Sure. I don't do all of these anymore. I still do the detox baths every Sunday. And then I started taking some additional supplements to move my lymphs instead of doing the daily dry brushing or the oil pulling. So I take burdock root to help move my lymph system. And then I have a homeopathic remedy called Lymph Stim that I take if I have issues. I have a little bit of lymphedema from the surgery site, because when they removed the tumor, they also did a dissection of my lymph nodes that were closest to the tumor itself. And I wish I had been warned by my oncologist at the time. Anytime you do anything to the lymph system, it's damaging it, and you risk developing lymphedema at any time in the future after that happens.
Oh, great.
So I have a little bit. So if the area swells or I find fluid there, then I will take the homeopathic remedy. But the burdock root plus the daily exercise seems to move my lymphs just fine. And so I do that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I still get outside as often as I can. I still really focus on good quality sleep, no drinking, no smoking. I still have all the clean personal care products, still use cookware that's clean. And I still take most of the supplements. I was on quite a few supplements while I was treating for cancer. I've discontinued some of those. Like I was taking modified citrus pectin, which helps to prevent metastasis, while I still had cancer cells in my body. But I've since discontinued those. I also took 10 mushroom complex, which is just a complex of a bunch of different mushrooms that helped with cell replication and immune system, like arming your immune system. So I don't take those anymore. But I still do things like digestive enzymes and probiotics. And I still take vitamin A, vitamin D, and iodine every single day. I was significantly deficient in those 3 nutrients, and they are the most cancer protective of your body. So I definitely still keep all of those in my daily regimen.
How much vitamin D are you taking?
I'm taking a lot because I'm still working with my gut, trying to get my absorption issues up to date. So I am taking 30,000 IUs on a daily basis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, I read a book called something like The Miracle of High Doses of Vitamin D. And I mean, vitamin D, they've given it such a bad rap, but it has helped people with so many things.
It's huge. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting with the ketogenic movement and our history in America of being low fat, because low fat means you have low cholesterol. Low cholesterol means you don't have any of the precursors to make vitamin D when the sun hits your skin, which means the entire country is chronically deficient in vitamin D, which means now we've got a lot higher incidence of cancer. So it all makes sense if you think about it.
Huh, I never even thought about that. That does make sense.
Vitamin D is a really big deal.
Yeah. And, think about this even. You live in Arizona, which is like one of the warmest places in the country.
Yep.
And you still have to supplement. So that just tells you something, right?
Yep. We have no deficient sunshine in Arizona for sure. But if you don't have cholesterol to make the vitamin D, it doesn't really matter how much sun you get. You're not going to make it.
Yeah, and plus cholesterol makes pregnenolone, which pregnenolone makes, all the other sex hormones. And so I was just talking to a friend at the gym about this because she was having some hormone imbalances. And I told her, because she's vegan, and I said, you need some cholesterol in your diet, Tosh. And so anyways, I sent her a couple like websites that I follow, like Cholesterol Code, and I'm sure you're familiar with all of that. So what type of advice would you give the listeners if they have either autoimmune or cancer or something like that?
If you're dealing with a chronic illness or an autoimmune disease, the best place to look is in your food. Like, are you sensitive or allergic to anything that you're eating on a regular basis? When I did my very first allergy panel, and the only reason I did my allergy panel is because my naturopath said usually the cause of autoimmune is food sensitivity. And so I did the panel, and I was allergic to like 30 or 40 different things. I was allergic to black pepper and beef and kidney beans and oranges and broccoli and all the things that I loved that I was eating on a regular basis, in addition to the two primary allergies, which are gluten and dairy. That means you have leaky gut. Because I had been eating those things for years and years and years, I had no idea that I was sensitive or allergic to them. And so my gut permeability was ridiculous, and everything that I was eating was not really absorbing, but going places it shouldn't be and irritating my immune system. So that's probably the first place I would look, either by elimination diet or by trying to go keto and at least get the big offenders out of your diet, all the inflammatory grains and vegetable oils and sugar. So I'd probably start there. That's probably where I would focus. Is if you can dial in and figure out what you're sensitive to, then you can start to architect an eating style that works for your body, because every single person is different. Like, sometimes I find that I need to have a little bit more carbohydrate, and sometimes I don't, where my husband can just be low carb, like seriously 0 carbs forever. Like, he can be carnivore and he's absolutely fine. No issues at all. So every single person is different. It depends on how you're made up.
Yeah.
And so I'd start there. Definitely.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think that a lot of people eat a lot of dairy on keto, and dairy is like one of the top 2 sensitivities. That and gluten are the top 2 because of the protein. Right. The casein protein in dairy is really hard to digest for most people. And but they don't probably have symptoms unless they go off of it for a while, heal their gut, and then reintroduce it.
Either that, or they go keto and they get sick and they blame the ketogenic diet. They don't realize it's all of the additional dairy that they've added into their routine.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, I want to figure out, like, if you can, like, get back to me later and send me a link or whatever, what blood test, because there's a lot of debate in that space. And because you used a naturopath, I would recommend to any of our listeners that if they do have autoimmune or cancer, definitely don't, listen to us for medical advice, but go and consult a naturopathic doctor. Right. But I know that I remembered the name of those tests. I've heard of MRT, which I know is a blood test. I interviewed a doctor and she was recommending MRT. And then I think there's another one called ALCAT. Do either of those sound familiar to you, Heather?
The MRT actually does sound familiar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I remember one tested for like 90 foods and one tested for, I think, 120 foods. And they actually like put your blood with the food to see if you develop antibodies. And then I just remember the 2 different tests because there were 2 different costs. I think one was like 150 and one was 500 in terms of what I had to pay. Okay.
So I bet you the 500 was the MRT. And that was probably the bigger one. And that makes sense to me because I know that the IgG food test is about 95 foods.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Okay. And it was a blood spot. Do you remember? Did you do a blood spot where you just put a little drop of blood on a card?
No, both of mine were actual vials of blood.
Okay. Interesting. What other things would you like to share? Like, what is your favorite keto meal? That's one of my favorite questions.
The thing I'm obsessed with, and I have been ever since I was prescribed keto, is Brussels sprouts roasted in the oven with a lot of bacon grease and salt. That's my favorite thing. And I think that aside from the keto ice cream was probably the way I got in most of my fat, is that way. So that was my favorite side. And sometimes I would just have that for lunch.
Oh, I love Brussels sprouts. So what do you do with the bacon then?
Well, I would eat the bacon obviously too, but usually the bacon is a snack and it just sits kind of on the counter or in the fridge all day. And if one of us needs it, then we grab a slice. And then I have a grease keeper that sits on my stove where all the bacon grease goes, and I use it for cooking.
Oh, okay. So you make the bacon, then you take the grease and you save it, and then you use it for cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And I use a ton of different fats because I don't do dairy. I have to use a lot of other kinds of fat. And I don't have any problems at all with saturated fat. My body seems to love it. So I do a lot of bacon grease, beef tallow, pure lard. And then I do things like avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, cacao butter. Use a lot of cacao butter in desserts and fat bombs and things. And then things like duck fat or even chicken fat. So I have an air fryer. And so we decide to make chicken wings. I'll do them in the air fryer. And then instead of putting my hot sauce with butter, I put the hot sauce with the fat that came off of the chicken inside the air fryer. And that becomes my buffalo style sauce that goes over the chicken. So I pour the fat back on.
That's a good idea. So can you do ghee?
I have not been able to do ghee because any molecule of casein that gets in gets me. And so even though it says like tested and it's casein free or whatever on the ghee, still makes me nervous.
Yeah.
So the couple of times I've tried, I've reacted, and so I haven't bothered with it again.
Yeah, I would be really careful, especially because, I mean, it's just not worth it, right?
It's not worth it. It usually affects me for like a month. So the first couple of weeks, I'll have like the sneezing and the swollen joints and the water retention and that kind of stuff. But then as time goes on, it messes with my hormones. It causes anxiety. It causes me to be kind of irrational. I get brain fog. It takes a little while for it to get out of my system. So it's really not worth it anymore to mess with it.
You know, and people who think that food sensitivities are like not real, I mean, that's proof of the pudding. It lasts you a whole month. I mean, come on. That's something.
No, they're a big deal.
So
big
how
deal. So
are
definitely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I would definitely get started there. If someone has an issue or they suspect or having chronic illness, start with food allergies and sensitivities and figure that out. And then also stress. Are you like severely stressed in any part of your life, whether it's a relationship, a job, a friendship, dealing with another loved one that's got chronic illness, aging parents, whatever it is, disruptive children, anything and everything. You got to figure out how to manage that stress, or if you're able to get it out of your life, get it out of your life. Because stress was really what kind of compounded everything for me on top of all the other things I was dealing with.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, stress is really bad for the flight or fight, this parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And so let me ask you, so is your autoimmune disease, are those cleared up at all since you went keto?
They are in remission, both of them. I got 0 symptoms of my lichen sclerosis. Thank goodness, because that one was awful. And my Hashimoto's, I still take thyroid medication because of the damage that was done to my thyroid. It doesn't produce hormones like it should, but all of my antibodies are within normal range. So it is considered in remission.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that is awesome. I have a friend that has Hashimoto's and she doesn't believe me about keto, but I'm going to tell her that.
Yep.
Wow.
It's pretty great.
That is awesome, Heather. I mean, especially...
The keto's been fantastic. It's like life-changing. It really is.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it's changed your life quite a bit.
Well, I'm grateful for keto because I was able to just kind of preserve the integrity of my body. And not only have I healed from all these things, but I get compliments all the time that I look 15 years younger. Like I've rewound the clock and regained years. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All because keto enabled me to say no to some really toxic conventional treatment options that I was kind of facing. And so, like, not only did I heal, but I even got healthier. It's very cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's huge. So what's next for you, Heather? What are you going to do? Are you doing your marketing business? I mean, I know that you're going to nutrition school. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So now I'm really kind of transitioning from focused on healing myself to educating others and helping them take control of their own healing and also their own medical treatment. So one of the big things I learned through my own cancer process is that cancer is a big business and it's misunderstood. And just like cholesterol was back in the day, the conventional doctors and practitioners are trained in a different way than what's reality. And there's a lot of fear mongering, unfortunately, that goes on with conventional oncologists. If you don't want to go through chemo or radiation or submit to surgery, then they basically tell you straight up that you're going to die, and they'll threaten you and they'll threaten your loved ones. And it's really unfortunate. I want to see more people acting like they own their medical treatment and understanding that whoever they hire to help them with their medical treatment are people they hire. They work for you. You can fire them. You can pick new people. It's your team that you put together to help you. It's not about just following whatever the doctor says because they're the doctor. So that's a really big thing that I really want to help folks with. And so, like I said, I'm starting nutrition school, hoping to get my certified nutrition therapy practitioner cert from the Nutrition Therapy Institute. And then I'll go through their master program. And then after that, I want to get board certified with the NANP, and then hopefully I can go through Dr. Winter's certification program. She's got an oncology nutrition institute that she opened, and she has a program where you actually learn about nutrition specifically for treating cancer. And so I've got a lot of school in front of me, but I want to get the formal education to be able to help people directly, as well as share my story and educate. And I don't know, maybe do some motivational speaking or some keynotes, maybe write a book. We'll see what happens.
That's awesome. How long is all your schooling going to take you?
It's going to take me a little while. I think the first round at the Nutrition Therapy Institute is going to be, I think it's at 8 months is the first one. And then 5 months is the second one.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be a couple of years. It'll be a little while.
That's not that much. 8 months and 5 months?
Yep.
That's doable. That's only like a year.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
And with your passion for, I mean, gosh, I love your story. I didn't even, when I came to sit here to talk to you, I didn't even realize what a moving and powerful story.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm serious.
I get that a lot. And now I'm so far past it. One, I sometimes can't even believe that I went through all of that. And two, I don't feel superhuman. I feel like when stuff happens, you have two choices. You either lay down and let it happen, or you put your big girl pants on and you go to town, right? You take care of it.
Well, it's good to hear you say that. Thank you very much
for the compliment.
Well, I'm going to Florida this week to go visit my dad, and he doesn't listen to me. His cancer doctor told him he could eat whatever he wants, that food doesn't matter. And then when I called him one day, he was at chemo, because now it's spread everywhere. It's metastasized from his kidney and it's in his bones. And anyways, he was at chemo, and I said, "What are you doing, Dad?" He's like, "Oh, eating cookies and candy." And I just cringed.
Oh, no.
And it's heartbreaking because now I'm realizing that, it's pretty bad now. And I know that all these stories of people who I've talked to, like you and Allison, and, I've talked to other people that have healed themselves, like he just doesn't get it.
Yeah. Well, he's been trained otherwise, like most of the people in the country.
Yeah.
And I actually had that moment myself with my oncologist. My first meeting with my oncologist, he was like, "Don't worry, you did nothing wrong. This is not your fault. We'll take care of it. You'll be fine." And I looked him in the eye and I said, "Is there anything that I can do alongside our treatment plan to help myself? Any lifestyle changes, dietary changes I can make?" And he looked at me and he said, "Nope, there's nothing you can do." And I was like, "Really? There's nothing I can do?" There's always something you can do, because I knew that I had treated my body really poorly for a long time. I had done it to myself, basically. And then when I started researching on my own, no, there's a lot you can do. And diet is a huge piece of it. I'm a firm believer that diet is the cause of illness, and it's also the correction of illness, for sure.
Yeah. And anything's possible. I mean, I always tell people it's never too late.
No, never.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you're a Zumba girl too. That's that's awesome. I miss teaching that. I dislocated my knee in the middle of class, and so I ended up having 2 knee surgeries, and there went Zumba. But oh my gosh, that was like one of my favorite things I've ever done.
It's so fun. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Heather, I just want to thank you. Oh, wait, do you have a website or a way that people can find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just my name. So it's heathercohen.com, and my last name is COOAN.com. So they can find me there, and then Heather Cohen all over social.
And it's a blog you have on there?
It's a website with a blog attached, yes.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm going to grab that recipe that you were talking about too. So we'll put that, the recipe for the keto ice cream on there. I'm always looking for dairy-free, delicious recipes. So I think that you'll be a new resource.
Sounds good. I publish quite a few recipes. So a lot of stuff that I make on a regular basis, I end up putting on my website. I'm in the process of merging 2 websites together. I used to have a resource that was specifically for keto. I was thinking I wanted a food blog, and I was going to go down the cookbook arena. And now I've decided, instead of having multiple websites, I'm just going to merge everything together. So it'll take a minute for everything to be in one place, but heathercohen.com is where you'll find it all.
And COOAN. It's not the typical. We'll have a link to that in the show notes so people can easily find you. So awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You inspired me, and I'm sure you're going to inspire many, many other people.
That's my mission. Thank you so much. I really had a great time.
Well, thank you. Wow. She gave so many juicy details that we can use to heal our bodies. From the therapeutic ketogenic diet to the detox baths and dry brushing and oil pulling, the list goes on. So if you learned something, please share this episode with a friend and give us a rating and review on iTunes so that more people can find these inspiring and healing stories. The more ratings and review we have, the higher ranking in iTunes, and it will pop up and people will find us. So thank you so much for listening, you guys. Go out and make it a super day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion, and I could be wrong.